call the meeting to order. Can we please have a roll call? Mr. Scott?
So I call President accounted for.
We are. Any public comments?
I have no request. You request to speak from the public? Come on, Chris. Don't let us down. No comments on Sunday.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. We're excited to be here today. We always want to make sure that we're helping everyone in the community. So part of that is having goals. So anyway, with that, who's going to start us off? Michelle Bender, our city manager. Thank you, Michelle.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody. As you know, we're here to get the goal setting process started. We're going to use the same format that we used last year, which I think was very effective. So our job today is to have fun throwing out all the ideas, understanding what the council's goals are. Because we have a really good, robust set of goals that we created last year, that several of them we understood would be ongoing goals. So they were goals that were going to continue to move forward, because some of them couldn't be completed in 1 year due to the magnitude. So we're going to go through a brief intro. We're going to briefly summarize and chat about the goals from last fiscal year. And then we're going to, by the end of the meeting, look to council for direction on what to include in our 27 work plan. So these goals will become effective July 1 through June 30th of next year. While we're wrapping up the goals that we set last year, they should wrap up by June 30th of this year. We will then, at the second goal setting meeting, March 18th, come back to this room. Staff will have spent time trying to determine what we can put into the work plan and what it's going to cost and how we're going to fit that into the budget. We'll present that to you and you'll have an opportunity to react, move things around if you would like more advancement on some goals, less advancement on others, and then we will program that into the budget that we will then bring to you in June for adoption. So it all layers into each other. Any questions before we start this year's goal setting? Okay. Thanks. Go next slide. A brief recap on last year's goals. Last year, you identified as a council 4 main themes, 4 key themes. So public safety and emergency response, traffic management and mobility, good governance and fiscal health, and community well-being. Staff then went ahead and created an action plan for each of those goals. So it was a little bit more of a formal process last year, but I think that aligns with the professionalism and trying to operate like an efficient business that we're driving the city towards. Next goal slide. So this is a more detailed, you have a more detailed update in front of you. So you've got the progress on each of the 21 goals that we established as your handout. This is a brief overview, a snapshot of how things are looking. So as you can see, out of the 21 goals we established, 42% have already been completed. We're on track to complete the other 11 goals, so 52%. The Strategic Economic Development Plan is the one goal that is not going to be completed by June 30th. That is going to be completed in the fall. So that is a very robust undertaking and we want to get it right. So that goal will continue on to completion in the fall. Here is a snapshot of where the work landed from the work plan. So as you can see, our Friends in Development Services are enjoying the lion's share and moving a number of goals forward. We will again bring this to you so that you can see where the areas of focus are and how that might potentially impact workload in each of the departments.
Michelle, I do have a question since it is so prominent, right, that the bulk of the work falls under develop. Are we going to be having a conversation about the staffing?
I think the beauty of goal setting is we can have all the conversations around the goals. We in development services in particular do still struggle to recruit engineers and some of the professional staff. So we've got a lot of tools in our toolbox with contracts. We're trying to maintain staffing. It feels like every time we hire an engineer, something different happens. But yes, if you you would like to discuss staffing as part of the goal setting, I think that's well within your purview.
Okay, I would definitely wanna hear more about that, 'cause I think it is really striking that that's where the work is.
Yes, and that is true. I think the benefit of having this brainstorming session, picking goals to move forward into the work plan, when we do the work plan, we'll work with development services to see what we can fit into the work plan without impacting the external customers that depend on development services. And I think at that point, if council feels like they want to move a goal further down the line than our work plan suggests, that would be an opportunity where we would have to figure out what's going to give.
Okay.
And that's where we could potentially talk more about that.
Do you see us doing that today, or is that in our next tentative?
Yeah, I think, unless council wants as a goal, something related to a full staffing analysis, I think it probably falls in the next session when we have the work plan. Cause as you remember from last year, we talked about some pretty big goals, and then we took a bite because that's what we could accomplish in the year, and so that would be a good time to have that conversation.
And just to kind of follow up on that, you know, I don't think, you might get to a deeper level of detail later on in the presentation, Michelle, but just because there's one category that's at the 10 mark, it really just depends on, you might have had a goal within there that took you one day to complete, right? Whereas the economic development strategy is gonna probably be going on for years.
Mhm.
And so it would be good to maybe have a little bit more color around, or detail around the, you know, what those 10 are, in that category, or just tell us that there was a lot of smaller kind of quick wins there.
Mhm.
And that way, maybe we don't necessarily need to address the staffing.
Yes, I think, that's a great point when we bring back the work plan to really emphasize what the, level of effort for each of the goals is gonna be along with the budget required. And, I think that we should include as part of the budget required if we believe we're going to have to augment staff with, consulting in order to get the goal achieved, or if it's going to require potentially hiring somebody in addition.
And to further, talk about that just for a minute, you know, we're already working on the budget and all of the different, development services, the city manager's office, everyone's putting together their wish list. So the different departments are already working on that.
Yep.
So they've already got, they're going to know exactly what their workload is. I'm not even sure that we'll have that by March. I think that's going to be kind of an ongoing sort of, discussion, just based on what I know about the process. Because, you know, we also don't wanna be, I don't wanna say irresponsible, but irresponsible could be, a description of hiring too much staff when we don't need them for ongoing, you know,
Absolutely.
bodies to have in those. I mean, I know a lot of cities tend to do that, but that's not the San Marcos way, so, you know, we wanna.
It's not the lead.
It's not the lead way, that's right, and we wanna continue, you know, proving to our residents that we are going to spend their money wisely. And that is not hiring too much, too early, but then, making sure that we're also covering everything, so, I do wanna, you know, just bring that
No,
up.
it's very good.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions before I move on to the next portion of the presentation? Okay, so what I would like to do here is, before we begin discussion, I just wanna read through what, we believe as staff were continued goals, to see if council's in agreement and alignment that you believe those are continued goals. So I'm gonna, run through those, continued goals that may need enhanced resourcing. And then I'm going to go over to some opportunity areas, and then after that, we'll open it up to the conversation. Phil will keep a slide up that has both the continued enhanced goals and suggested goals, and then, we will have our scribes on either side of the board to add to the additional goals that the council may wanna unpack. So, as I said, last year we talked about some longer term goals that would be ongoing given the magnitude, as you referenced, the Strategic Economic Development Plan and its subsequent implementation. Obviously, building Fire Station 5, it was not a one-year goal, so that is ongoing. I think have a pretty good inclination that you would like to continue to invest the additional resources to keep that fire station going at a very fast pace so that we hit our target deadline, but we can have that conversation. Last year, we also added some increased overtime for our sheriff's department in, speaking to exactly what the council just mentioned, which is, trying to pull on different levers other than hiring additional staff, trying to meet the needs of the community in a fiscally responsible and lean way. We also continue to focus on extra resources for traffic. So far as I can tell, nobody has less comments regarding traffic since last year. So leaving that on the board as a potential for us to continue to discuss. There was also a goal to discuss getting ready to launch a general plan update. And I think the next step potentially for that would be making a decision to launch that in the fiscal year 27. So we can talk about if that's something you would like to do. And finally, Blue Zones and the Economic Development Strategic Plan, two council initiatives that are underway, and we can have a conversation about continuing those or what the next steps may or may not look like if we do continue. Before we start discussion, if Phil could move to the next slide. Oh, this next one, okay. Potential areas of opportunity. So it was great that the council asked staff to come forward with some suggestions on areas that we think are important and maybe planning to work on anyway. If the council feels that these are worthy goals, we can then invest even a little bit more time and energy into accomplishing these goals. As I said, it's items that the staff is focused on trying to accomplish regardless. One, as we get closer to build out, we're hearing more concerns about traffic, parking, and other quality of life issues. So you'll see that there's an enhanced resident coordination for code enforcement, parking, animal control, and other quality of life issues. That is potentially an area that staff would like to perhaps add a little additional resourcing or budget to. Increased road surfacing. We're gonna be road resurfacing. Potentially investing more in road resurfacing might fulfill our goals of spending money to save money in the future. Accelerating playground replacements. We do have some playgrounds that we would like to replace to keep them safe and to provide good amenities for our community. Digitizing public records and making them available online. It doesn't sound as exciting as a playground, and yet it would make a tremendous impact on efficiency and development services ability to be efficient. Instead of rifling through paper to find old plans, spending money, it's expensive to digitize and organize data, but will pay great dividends.
I have a quick question on that.
Yes.
Does that mean a better search engine searching for these items? Because I know this.
I will hand that over to
Every time,
search
every time
engine queen.
I try to find something and I know
Yeah,
where to look, I just feel like,
Yeah, it's
Phil?
very Vicky, the website search I think is working really well. The document, like, to me, the ideal thing would be to put these in a portal where public could find their own documents if they're public
yes,
documents.
exactly,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
And I do think a lot of those systems, the search is not as intuitive as Google,
Yeah.
but I think there's tricks we can use metadata to make it easier.
The
Yeah.
problem we've had in the past is the format of the documents.
Mhm.
When they're all scanned in as a PDF, it's
Yes.
extremely difficult to search. You
Yes.
have to have the right program, and
Yeah.
they're not all in that program.
Yes, yeah, so I think the trick is, the upfront work is really, the scanning is a piece of work, but really preparing everything to be scanned and how are you gonna tag it, how are you gonna organize it?
Also meet the Secretary of State guidelines for trusted, digital providers, so, it has to meet certain state requirements also.
So, yeah, like Michelle said, not exciting, but big and such a huge time saver, and I think better for the public too, because then they can serve themselves.
And then, again, not as exciting as a playground or resurface roads, but very, very important to us, is reduce bureaucracy by updating and simplifying city policies and code sections, getting out of our own way and slashing some red tape so that we can move city business forward as efficiently as possible. So those are the goals from last year that we think you might be interested future potential goals, and then the world is your oyster, from there. So,
I do have a question, if you can share a little bit, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is really the budget deficit that we have within the state, within the county. And so the big area for me that I think we spend a lot of time on and emphasis is our public safety and emergency response. So I'm thinking about how are we looking to see, right, what that deficit climate, what that looks like, how we're taking that into consideration, because obviously we're gonna have, right, all of this, but then how are we thinking about that? What does that look like for us?
So how does the state deficit impact the city in our emergency response?
And just in general, of public safety, are we assuming that it's gonna be business as usual? Are we gonna get some big hits fiscally, or what does that climate look like? I'm just trying to figure out, is this
Yeah.
really just a wish list, or are we being realistic about where we're at and what we can accomplish?
Absolutely. I think local government to some degree is a little more insulated from the state's deficits and the county deficits. I think it impacts us, if the county pulls back on social workers, that they, instead of sending them out once a week, they're sending them out once a month. There's little nuances like that that do impact us. As far as, Dan's department or the sheriff's department, at the moment, we're under contract for sheriff for 1 more year, so that is a stable fixed cost. Dan works very independently from the state. They will still reimburse on reimbursable incidents. They have not removed that because they still need the mutual aid. I think that as a city, we've had numerous conversations around investing our funds for the future, just being really wise with the money. So focusing in these initial years of Measure Q on spending money to make money or save money, and catching up on anything that is public safety related. If there's anything out there that we think could become a potential emergency, that should be the first thing we put in the budget. So as staff for the budget, the direction was focus on public safety, make sure everything is as safe as it can be. Next rung up, focus on core services. Make sure that the roads are paved so that the pavement stays in really good condition, so that we don't end up having to invest a ton of money, not to bash on San Diego, but some of those roads are now gonna have to go all the way back down. It's gonna cost 10 times more than doing a good job of keeping the resurfacing going. So we've done public safety first, make sure nothing is unsafe. Focus on core services so that we're doing a good job of doing what we promised the citizens to do. Your roads are good, 911 arrives in a timely fashion, parks and playgrounds are safe, the city looks clean and tidy and well maintained. After that, if we feel like we've hit all of those marks, then staff were given the directive of how could you enhance quality of life, but you can't spend money on the enhancing quality of life or the fun projects until the 2 bars are taken care of. So it's probably a good idea that we're all aligned on that concept. However, this is your goal setting, so you do get to float whatever it is you feel is important.
For our sheriff's contract, when would negotiations begin for that renewal?
I anticipate that we'll pick the negotiating committee probably November this year and initiate negotiations probably December, pick up in earnest in January, and hopefully have a contract negotiated early spring so that the county can put it into their budget.
Okay.
And we pay the real costs on that, even, like, they're not subsidizing us on what we pay for our sheriff deputies. And another thing that I think is important to also remember is we receive 7.2% out of every property tax dollar. The county receives double that. So what is it that we're receiving from the county? I think that, in my opinion, we should actually continue delving into that to figure out what it is that we were promised at that time when Prop 13 actually passed of what we were supposed to receive, as far as services from the county at that point in time, because they do receive double what we receive as a city. And in my opinion, for the 20 years that I've been on the council, we have always had, priority of our public safety. We've always done very well with that, and, you know, I think with boundary drop, that has further, made us more efficient, and I had someone ask me a question. There was, the city of San Marcos, there was, someone from Escondido that responded. That's actually the closest, equipment at that time because of the boundary drop, which I think, has done, you know, wonders for us. And by the way, I don't think we've even discussed it. Yay on, getting the, class 1 certification again. For another 5 years, everyone, yay. But, you know, being able for us to always have that as our first and foremost, you know, plan of, that's where we're going to invest our money. And then, again, you know, our services to our community, so that they, you know, feel that we are definitely serving them and proving up to them, what we promise them. And then, yeah, back to the next, tier. I wholeheartedly believe in all of that, because we've done such a good job for all these years, such good leadership behind us, and now, you know, for us just to continuing that. As I sunset my time here in the city, which, it's okay, we've got a great team, that's here, and, anyway, just really focusing on those, I think are, you know, in my opinion, something that I would not waver from.
Would the council like to start by, deciding if you would like to continue any of these goals or initiate any of these, or how would you like to proceed?
I think they're all important.
And not only are they all important, but I think that we're already making some great progress on most of them.
Yeah.
You know, full steam ahead on Fire Station 5, I think that was loud and clear from the whole council, from day one. And then I would like to go in a little bit more over the course of the next 6 months about the deputy overtime. And I don't have any data to say that we have, you know, enough deputies, or we're gonna need more deputies, you know, today, tomorrow, a year from now, 3 years from now. But I'd like to get a little bit more educated about that data and what that looks like, and if we need to start, thinking about ramping up our deputy coverage, you know, maybe one next year and one the year after, or something along those lines. I wouldn't mind I don't know if that's a goal, but having the education around that for the entire council, I think would be good. And then the other thing, I know that we're doing a tremendous amount of work, and great job to everybody that's been involved with it on the e-bike education and enforcement. From a goal standpoint, how do we measure the results? It's a little tricky part.
Can I add, because for me, what would be helpful, because it seems like there's already some assumptions that are built into what we're seeing, so what would be helpful for me is to get a little bit more information as far as what the issue is, what we're contemplating. See, like, for instance, when I see the sheriff deputy overtime, I'm not really sure what issue or issues we're addressing, and is that something that we're gearing up to our contract negotiations that will happen, at the end of the year? So for me, that would be helpful to get a little bit more context on each one.
I think we discussed this last year about programming some money in some somewhat discretionary funds for the captain.
Yeah.
For last minute projects where they need to put together a team and target. Instead of having to go through sheriff's management or coming to you, the money's there, and it's just a matter of the appropriations. They're not necessarily dollars in the bank, it's, you have the appropriation to spend.
As needed basis, I would
Yes.
probably say.
Yes, so that item, is offering to continue the goal that you adopted last year, which is as Councilmember Musgrove stated. Last year, the goal was have a fund, it was $50,000 available to the sheriff's captain, so that when they wanted to do any sort of special enforcement detail, if something was popping up that they couldn't accommodate a solution with the existing staffing that they had, they could then email me and request permission. We would like to do a gang detail on Saturday. That's gonna cost approximately $10,000. Do you approve? I send that note over to finance. Finance knows, okay, that 10,000 is coming out of the pot of 50 in additional overtime. And I think council's goal was to try to make the staffing that we currently have stretch. Because as a council, there's a few things at play where you're trying to, move people around depending on what the hot topic is in the city at the time. And that just gave just that tiny bit more flexibility. So you had two goals related to sheriff last time. One goal is accomplished, the off-road vehicle that can then patrol areas like Palomar Mountain, where sometimes people are off-roading, lighting fires, keeping Dan awake at night. That has been accomplished, so we're not proposing anything additional on that one. But the 50,000 is something to debate if you would like to continue it.
Yeah, and we had that traffic detail,
Yes,
that went out.
that was part of it.
I went, it was, they met at One Safe Place. There were, deputies and law enforcement from all over the county. I went out and, greeted them and said thank you. And one of the things that they were actually going to be doing is starting to talk to the e-bikers, because that was, something that we'd already implemented, that. And so, you know, I would definitely be in favor to continue that, because again, you know, we don't know what's going to be emerging, we don't know what's going to be happening, but if there is something happening, I like to be able to respond, you know, per our law enforcement, needs, that we would be able to do that quickly and efficiently.
We get complaints, speaking for the rest of the council, but I think the majority have to do with traffic-related issues, so improving traffic flow can sometimes be a matter of synchronization, but there's also the demand on our streets at certain times of the day. And the e-bike education enforcement, there's an agreement with the traffic units throughout the county that each month, a different city gets to have a detail for the motor units to come in. And the reciprocal is that a smaller city like National City can get 40 or 50 motor units in target areas. Now, an upside to that is the new motor sergeant for the sheriff's office is our new traffic sergeant. So we will always get the lion's share of available time. That money's good for that, but it may not be something we have to pay out of pocket, as long as the agreement comes in place where, well, you come here and then we'll go there.
Yeah.
But, I think if we could put a little more emphasis when you go, especially if you're on the negotiating team, when you go to look at staffing, 24-hour cars are extremely expensive. It's maybe between 5 and 7 deputies, depending on what you're doing, plus the equipment. But an 8-hour traffic car is less so. Motors are expensive, people would think not, but they are. But if we're gonna target areas like e-bike education and enforcement and ensuring people are compliant, then that's extremely effective. And we've talked about that going back 4 captains, so. It's just a matter of, the will of the city to say yes, because people will complain now, why am I getting a ticket? Well, because you complained that people were speeding. So.
That never happened.
Just like the complaint
Every
last week
time.
about what are we gonna do about hit and runs? Yeah, I mean, what do you do about that? So I think enforcement drives home a mindset that compliance is the way to get from A to B without being targeted.
And for me, the overtime I thought was a really good, way to do it last year. And it may be a good way to continue this year, but as we continue to grow as a community and based off of, you know, the feedback that we get from our sheriff's experts, our captains and such, you know, I would like to get a little bit more information around, you know, kind of how do we benchmark with our, you know, total number of our deputies on duty per shift for, given our population, and how does that compare to our neighboring cities, that kind of data, right? And are we keeping up, are we, you know, are we ahead of the game, are we behind? You know, and there might be other factors that play into it too. We might not need necessarily as many deputies because we're already a safe community and we've got a lot of other programs in place that other communities might not have. So just to kind of have just a broader understanding of all of that as we go into the future.
Yeah.
Especially if we're gonna be negotiating a new contract next year, it might be timely to have that conversation about if, you know, replacing the overtime funds with maybe an additional officer or deputy.
And sadly, we're going to have a new captain.
Yes.
And I think, you know, that's part of the budget, process too, of them telling us what their needs are so that you, can figure out what you bring to us, so that will be part of it too.
Good timing.
So can we come back then to what's up there, then would the goal then be, some sort of assessment before we go into contract negotiations, or some sort of what? I'm not sure what the ask is, or
I
what
think
we
I'm
would.
hearing two things that the council can confirm. I think I'm hearing that the council's in support of continuing $50,000 in overtime on an as-needed pool. And then I think I'm hearing a second goal to do an assessment, benchmarking against similar cities and in the region to determine, cost per resident for our deputies, number of deputies per resident, what else we might have in place that would be different than other cities, a robust neighborhood services, for example, and then present that information to council so that we can make an informed decision going into contract negotiations to see if we might in the future add deputies to, the contract. Does that sound about what I'm hearing?
So for me, it's not clear, but is the 50,000 sufficient? Is that insufficient? Where are we at with it?
I'm going to make eye contact with the finance director. There we go. I believe that we still have more than half of the funds available from last year, and we're slightly more than halfway through the year. So 50,000 seems to be potentially more than we needed.
So would we do the 50,000 again, or deplete these funds and then add more, or how do we decide when to add more to that?
It doesn't roll over.
Yeah. Yeah, is it
Yeah,
rolling over?
come June 30th, those funds are off the books,
Okay.
either back into the general fund or into a surplus or into something. So we would, if you wanted money in the next budget year, which is part of this goal setting, we would then
To
take the
decide
number
what
and
to,
include
okay,
it.
so that's not money they have received and get to allocate that as, okay.
No, don't as stingy that way, it's encouraging.
All right, so
She's
yeah,
controlling
so-
us.
Okay,
So
that's
can
clear.
I clarify then, so then, I remember when we voted on the e-bike education and enforcement, there was an allocation, right, for that specific purpose? Was that in addition to this 50,000? Are we talking about the same funds, or what is that?
No,
look like?
that's a great question, because in some instances, e-bike enforcement might come out of this 50,000. The e-bike money that was appropriated is for the e-bike program, so we needed to spend attorney funds on developing the updated ordinance. We needed some outreach dollars, we needed some education dollars, so there's the e-bike specific, creating a program and running the program, and then there's an e-bike enforcement piece, some of which might come out of this additional funding for the deputies.
Okay, because I, for one, would definitely wanna make sure that we continue to do the education, to do that piece, that I wanna make sure that doesn't suffer.
Go ahead.
And the enforcement, because it's gotten to that point.
Okay, and that's new, so we need to make sure that we have enough money there to, make sure that's effective.
Right, so that'll be in addition to the $50,000
Okay.
that we're allocating.
Yes.
I would definitely be in favor of that as well. I feel like people are starting to pay attention, which, has started at some point in time, but I feel like it's finally starting to, be understood that we're not playing around, we want people to be safe. We need them to be engaged.
And as we get more, my earlier question about how do we measure the results, I guess one way we could is, as we get more enforcement data, we can, how does it compare year over year? We can look at that down the road.
Incidents and injuries.
Incidents,
in there,
yeah, accidents and injuries, yeah, so, okay, I like it.
General plan update, is that a goal that you would like to initiate in the next fiscal year?
I think we need to, it's a year and a half process, so. And we're probably looking at, maybe 75% turnover, I would think, with the people who would be inclined to help on that.
Well, I have some very strong feelings about this. I'm not even, just based on how the last crash and burn went, when we were updating our general plan and the intensification that some folks wanted, and I'm all for planning, but the amount of, intensification and how many housing units and how much, intensity. I'm uncomfortable with that personally because the state continues to take away our ability to even control what we have today. So, you know, I talk about this, project quite a bit, you know, where we have a developer at 1.3 acres trying to put in a 6-story, 160 unit project. I have a problem with that. If we update the general plan to much more than it is today, and that, and one piece of property, just one example, thinking that's going to be, you know, 4 people, and really it's 160 units, and who knows how many people that is. I'm very concerned about how a general plan update would look. And that's just my opinion,
So
but.
maybe not burn it down, just look at it and see what needs to be
Make
updated.
small adjustments,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, I think the state, and, you know, I hope you get elected, for state senate, council member, but you're one person. What's happening up in Sacramento is disastrous to our communities, and I mean, literally every time, I mean, we look at SB 677, where that's, SB 79 on steroids, the next iteration of 12 stories versus 7 stories, it's a problem. So I personally think small adjustments would be more advisable, rather than, sweeping changes. I don't know if y'all remember, but the option 2 or the alternative 2 of our general plan.
180,000, is that right?
No, it's 210, I think. 210,000 population, maximum. I'm gonna be out of office, but here in San Marcos, but I still, as a resident, I've got a real problem with that. I think that North City is beautiful where it's at, you know, we approved that back in 2009, but I do not wanna see that everywhere in our city. So, my opinion would be tweaks, but not a full update.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that and then ask the question, so when I first got on the council, the then city manager was presenting a general plan update that was gonna take us north of a
Yes.
population north of 200,000.
Correct, yes.
And there was an appetite from some of the council members to go in that direction, but then there was at least 3 council members that there's a reason why we haven't done it yet, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I don't think the city's ready to go to 220,000 people either. And, so if we do, but at the same time, I do think we need to update our general plan. So if we do update our general plan, you know, what was driving that all that growth and development? Does it have to be that way? Because I've said for at least definitely last year and maybe even prior years, I like the idea of sprinkling some life up and down San Marcos Boulevard, for example, and coming up with maybe a greater, more, planned design for San Marcos Boulevard that mixes in residential and recreation and entertainment and all of that, right? But the plan that was presented to me when I first got on the council by the previous city managers, it was thousands of residential units on San Marcos Boulevard. It was scary looking. And that's why I think it got halted. And so if we do make this a goal and we start going down that path again, can we create a general plan update that is something that is, gets the comfort level from all the council members from a growth standpoint?
Absolutely, the beauty of a general plan is it truly is a policy document. So as the 5 policymakers for the city, this rests squarely with you. So as a council, the very first conversation is, what are your goals and what would you like us to accomplish with a general plan update? So we would get very clear direction and guidance from the 5 council members and a consensus on which direction would you like us to take this. Do you want to maximum density? Clearly that is not what you're looking for. What are areas that you think we have potential to make a positive impact to the community? What do you think your constituents care about? And then once you've given us that direction, our job is merely to execute that policy direction. So we then go out, RFP, find a consultant, work with them, give them your policy direction, we iterate with them, and then we come back to you at various benchmarks to confirm. We heard you, we're on the right track, yes, no. We had a committee last time with community members and various voices. So again, you could tell us that you wanted a committee, the council got to select a So, yes, it's a policy document and you set the policy.
I think what we need to look at though are the current zoning requirements and the RENA numbers and the expectations.
Absolutely.
We don't wanna fall out of compliance by digging on our heels.
We're
only
not
to
gonna
have-
violate our housing law, yes.
Well, we don't want HCD to come out and
Not
say,
even
great,
close
you
to
have,
it, yeah.
we don't want HCD to come out and say, great, you have a plan that sucks, here's what you're going to do, which they will do.
Absolutely.
If we try to turn our back on some of the mandates, which are horrible, but they are there. And, you know, there are developers, we've already seen them come out from Los Angeles, they salivate at the opportunity there. And it's like the mayor was saying, sure, quarter acre, I can stick 50 units on that. We don't want that.
And I guess, you know, balancing that too, I don't know if everyone remembers the Briggs property, but there was this whole, you know, it came to us after it was already being, distributed to the community, that it was going to be, intense, when that's, I don't even know where that idea ever came from, so I think we need to keep a very, very close eye on the creation of it. I won't be here, but, I know, I just keep saying that, but it is important for us to have a plan that also takes into account that any piece of property can also be intensified with that density bonus, laws, that could change even something we zone into something more intense. So it's a real balancing act, because we wanted to, in my opinion, we wanna do just enough to always remain in compliance, but not going to a point where we are, opening up the door for an intensification using that density bonus or any of the density bonus laws. And it's going to continue to get worse, as there are some cities that aren't building anything. We're not that city, we've never been that city, we've got a growing university that, you know, governs a lot of, you know, the hospitals and the, education here in the city. We've always had some growth happening, but, you know, we also wanna balance it with how we keep control of it so that it doesn't go out of control.
So Huntington Beach just lost their appeal to the Supreme Court, they pushed it
Not
back to the
surprising.
9th, and they said, comply. Which we knew would ultimately come to that, so, you know, I like to learn from mistakes, but I'd rather learn from somebody else's mistake, it's less expensive, and we can kind of find out where we can guide our way and not become the issue, but still, you know, we have to reasonably manage the growth in the city. Otherwise, we'll be looking to build Station
5 is a lot to pull. Yes, and I thank you for that, clarifying the council that you're very focused on, increasing revenue, focusing on a strategic economic development plan, which will be done, and then can feed into some of your policy decisions around the general plan update. You're also loud and clear that you want us to be efficient, cut red tape, support small business. There's ways to accomplish that by making some changes in the general plan that facilitates a smooth track, eliminating what we see today as obstacles to, small businesses getting opened, or wise, thoughtful development being able to take place in an expeditious manner. So I think a number of your policy goals could be accomplished in a very thoughtful way through a general plan update.
So if I remember correctly, Mayor, the current general plan was presented in 10 and passed in 12, so now we're in year 14? Okay, and it was.
Before that, it was 20-something years.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of cities that
And we
have
thought
it.
a 10-year window would be a great opportunity, but realistically, 5 years is a better picture, but then it's a perpetual motion, it never stops. So.
It's a breathing document, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe like what you're saying is, instead of saying, okay, guys, do something with it internally within our own staff, look at it and say, where do we need to tweak, present that, and maybe that's all we need to do.
Right. I agree, it's been a long time, and we had a lot happen in the city in the past 10 years. I mean, it's time for it, but I like the idea of slow rolling it a little bit, because I feel like if we put it off, it's just going to be another, 10 years. So it's time to take little bites out of the apple and see what we can do with that, for sure.
I'm in favor of an update. So in terms of moving forward, what kind of cost would we be looking at? Do we have the funding? Where would it come from? What sort of direction are you looking for in terms of timing, or right, that would be helpful for me.
I think that if today we leave the room with, this is on your mind, we will put it into a work plan. So at that point, we'll huddle up with our development services experts, determine what appropriate timing might look like, and based on the timing we're suggesting, how much money do we need to appropriate to get that done? What would that look like? And then when we come back on March 18th, that information would be adjacent to this goal, so that you could decide faster is slower. If you wanna go slower, it'll be less money in the first year. If you wanna go faster, maybe it's more money, and that we can finalize some of those points on March 18th.
In that, could you also have, we have an immediacy, for instance, on updating this part of the general plan to again get to the goal of how do we, help our businesses open, small businesses open? I mean, there might be something we could do immediately that would be not too expensive, that could actually create those
Take one
opportunities.
step.
Yep.
Even some of the code updates that are part of their
Yeah.
plan.
And
to
mirrors
help
the
with
same
that.
process.
Yeah.
I think that covers the existing goals to potentially move forward. Looking at some of the soft suggestions.
Oh, can I say one more thing, actually, now that I'm thinking about that? There might be monies through SANDAG that we might be able to get planning dollars, to
Yes.
help with those efforts. And I will definitely champion those efforts, so if you just let me know, keep that in mind.
Yes,
OPM,
they're funding the specific plan updates, the, hackathons, there's some good funding for CIPs, we're getting a lot of love from SANDAG right now, so. Good job.
you're welcome.
Oh, yes, that's right. On the previous slide, we had, continuing, on Blue Zone. Is the council, in favor of us adding to a work plan, implementing part of the Blue Zone, talking about tackling a full Blue Zone, low-hanging fruit from the assessment that we get on Blue Zone? Just get a sense of where that goal potentially might continue into the future, or if we're satisfied with the Ignite assessment and took away.
Well, for the most part, that's not going to be, paid for with taxpayer dollar. I mean, so for us, it improves the quality of our, life of our residents, but we don't necessarily have to put a lot of money into it. In my opinion, you know, anything that we can further do for what we've always tried to do, keep people exercising, keeping them out and active, but then this actually even takes it a little bit higher. I personally would be, in favor of continuing those efforts. And fun fact, Councilmember Nunez's nephew, he wants to be part of it, so we're getting the young people involved too, which is so exciting. So I think bringing our, next generation into the next evolution of what our city becomes is super important, and the health part of it too. Yeah,
I
Jennifer?
Go ahead. I for one, I don't really think that I have information to, really, I'm not sure what's even being asked. And I say that because, I think as a council, we haven't received really information on what it is that as a city we're involved with, and really what the goals are, if there are any goals. So it's not clear to me what the city involvement is. So for me, I think it's, at least I'm not able to respond today. And I think it's something that I would like to see be presented. If it is a city initiative, then it should be presented to either have a workshop, have some sort of presentation as to what it is, where we're at, and what the ask is, so that the residents have the opportunity to receive the information, and we have the opportunity to receive public comment. So for me, I'm not able to respond because I'm not really sure what the initiative is. I'm not sure what the city's involvement is. I'm not sure what we would be moving forward. So for me, it's just not something that I can respond to at this time.
Did you watch a Netflix series?
I did not know.
Oh, okay.
But
That
maybe
tells-
we could show it
that's-
to our
yeah.
residents. I would not be opposed to that.
And we also have that event on March 17th, which is the
Yeah.
kickoff that's open to the whole community.
Yeah.
So that would be a good opportunity for people to come and learn about everything and learn about the assessment and learn more about the initiative.
Thank you for that. Is that something that our residents will be able to provide public comment?
It's not a public meeting, it's a Terry posted meeting, so Terry has invited the Blue Zones out to present the information. So because it's not a public meeting, I don't believe there'd be public comment. But it is open to the public, and Terry has an Eventbrite link out. They're very kindly sponsoring the event, providing the food and the facility. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for Terry to showcase Terry to the community as well.
So for me, what I would like to see is for our residents to have the opportunity to comment and share with us. I've had a lot of conversations with individuals, even though I haven't seen the Netflix series, but it's something that, I've heard a lot from our residents. One, I don't think they have information on what it is that the city is actually doing. And, so for me, it would be a great opportunity to hear, and to give information and to talk to the Blue Zones team that's doing the work. So that would be my request.
Actually, thank you, Councilmember Nunez, that's a great segue. There will be focus groups on the 17th prior even to the presentation at Terry. And the purpose of those focus groups is to engage with interested residents. There'll be an English focus group and a Spanish-speaking only focus group. We will have interpreters of both. And that's the opportunity to engage directly with those Blue Zone experts, get questions answered, and then elicit feedback from the residents on what they're interested in once they understand what Blue Zones are and how we should incorporate their feedback into the final assessment, or Blue Zone should incorporate the feedback. So that is open to anybody who's interested in getting that information, and it will be at 2 p.m. on the 17th. And then if the folks that enjoy the focus groups would like to attend the Terry event, that will be kicking off at 6 p.m. on the same day.
I'm sorry. So when are the assessments going out to the surveys, to the residents? Have they already been sent out?
Some surveys have gone out. There is currently a survey open at the moment in both English and Spanish that is available for residents to complete. So there's the survey component, and then there's the focus group component. And the focus groups are gonna continue into March. They're gonna then take all the data that they've acquired and present their final assessment to us sometime in the summer.
So with the people getting the surveys, have you received questions about them or anything like that? Or are people filling them out? Do we have any way to know that at this point?
Blue Zones is sending them out via Gala,
Okay.
and so, from the city's involvement and the staff involvement, it's more of a connecting the dots, making sure that Blue Zone has access to various groups in the community or setting up the focus groups for them. But that communication is directly residents sharing confidential personal information with Blue Zone.
So I guess the reason I asked that question is just, adding on to what Councilmember Nunez is asking, is as these surveys are going out to the residents, maybe there's something we can do, and I know the info's on the city website, but I don't know if there's another way we could promote it a little bit right now, and promote it in the sense of the upcoming, workshop, or keynote presentation that will be at Terry, so that people have more information as they're getting this in the mail, and they're not just thinking, what is this from Blue Zones? I have no idea what this is. I don't know if there's some other way that we can get it out into the community and get people excited about it, other than just having it on the website. And I know we've been putting it on social media, but I've received a lot of questions about it, like, what is Blue Zones? I don't wanna be like, oh, go to the website. It's just, I feel like there's a lot of maybe there's some other way we could also be promoting that right now. It's a key time to do that with the event coming up. But in general, I know a lot more about this than you do, Councilmember Nunez, because I've been involved with some of the upstart of this. So I agree that it would be great for the community to get more information about this and even understand more about what is happening on the 17th. so that people feel comfortable coming and get excited about it, so we get a good turnout.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, because unfortunately, I'm not well versed, I don't have a lot of the information that it seems like, you all have, but for me, I've had a lot of questions, and in general, the individuals that I've been having conversations with, it's not something that they know about, it's not something, they're not sure what, as I mentioned before, what the city's involvement is, and they're not really sure how this really has anything to do with them in the sense that, what does it mean for their own lives, right? We're in a time where at least a lot of these residents are really struggling and they're going through some really hard times. And we're talking about really basic necessities, right? They're having problems with their housing and their inability to pay for their rent. They're having, a hard time paying for their electricity bills, for their food. And so in terms of having this initiative, it's really hard for them to really see themselves, how they fit into this initiative. And so, one, I would definitely welcome that opportunity because, at least I'm not seeing the connection. I'm not really seeing how it benefits the work that we're promoting as a city when we're talking about the nuts and bolts of the city. And then the other piece is really, I've been disappointed that there's just not a whole lot of intentional engagement that's been geared towards at least District 1. And
Well,
so.
Sorry to interrupt, True Care is actually one of the founding, members of the Blue Zone Initiative, because they see the value in helping people. Did you know that type 2 diabetes a lot of times can be reversed with healthy, eating and all these different things? That's part of the Blue Zone, initiative. That's why True Care believes in this so very much. I think, and I don't know, I'm just gonna ask this question. Is it possible to have Universidad Popular as one of the groups that we intentionally go out and seek and engage in this? Because I feel like District 1, they're in the heart of District 1.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. One of the
yeah.
questions that I did have is what funding has been set aside to specifically conduct outreach and education with a lot of these vulnerable populations that are impacted, or I think would probably greatly benefit from this initiative. And what I was told was that there were no funds that were allocated for this specific purpose. So for me, that's really disappointing that although we are championing this as a city, really the fact that there's no resources that are specifically allocated, for me, that's really disappointing. And so I don't know what that means. So in terms of looking ahead and what results yield from this assessment, I would honestly be speculating as to what that looks like.
So like True Care, I can't remember there were so many people that invested 100, or different organizations, I should say. What?
Gary and Mary West Pace.
Yeah,
was
Gary and
another
Mary
one.
West Pace, which
Yeah.
really focuses on our elderly population. You know, these are healthcare folks or, you know, that help people, not necessarily healthcare, but quality of life, different organizations that focus on this. I think, you know, bringing in Universidad Popular would probably help, with what you're talking about. The $150,000, assessment was no taxpayer money. Definitely wanna make sure everyone understands that, but these organizations, affordable housing developers, as a matter of fact, and also invested in this because they see the value in helping people become healthier and live longer, and then also a higher quality of life. So as far as the city's, I guess, investment in it, we have nothing so far financially as far as, you know, the study itself. The study then comes forward and it tells us the city can, bring forward policies that can help. Healthcare plays a big role in it, and also, you know, Feeding San Diego, I was speaking to them and they were like, yeah, we wanna help provide some of the food for the cooking classes. It's bringing everyone together, so I would say right now, we're probably more of a facilitator. What do we call it? More of a facilitation, or?
Yes, it's interesting. Blue Zone is a package. You buy the package. So the sponsors that contributed the $150,000.
Not us.
That money goes to Blue Zones, and Blue Zones certainly have pushed and pulled and prodded a little bit to try to get to a place that we feel better fits our needs. But the Blue Zones does it the way Blue Zones does it because it's their assessment, they have their way of doing things, right, wrong, or indifferent. And we are the facilitator, we're the connector, we make sure that the right people attend the right meetings, but limited control. The city has limited control on how Blue Zone does it in my assessment.
Yeah, and just a little bit further, there are 5 naturally occurring blue zones in the world. And there where people live over 100 years because they have a higher quality of life. And they've found that they can replicate that within communities that are already established by changing a few things, bringing in partners and creating a real network of, I would say, quality of life champions. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but quality of life champions to help people that maybe don't understand. And you know, before my ex-husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I didn't know anything about how food was medicine for the body. But now I do know because I research it. There are a lot of people, I mean, I grew up eating not very good. I mean, we ate a lot of prepared foods. That stuff isn't quite good for your body all the time. And then, you know, reducing your stress and, you know, having those park spaces, a lot of different things. That's where the Blue Zone comes in. But I would call us more of a facilitator, I guess, than an actual, yeah, we don't own the initiative, but we wanna be part of it, I think, because
We're
we want,
partnering.
yeah, we want everyone to have a better quality of life. I doesn't think it matters how much.
Yeah, I was just
you
gonna
know about
kinda add, you know, when we started going down this path of looking into blue zones, I did some research about blue zones on my own, and then I did have a Zoom call with the Blue Zone leadership team, which was really helpful. And, you know, it really, as it's already been mentioned here, but, you know, it's all about kind of building this community culture around health and healthy lifestyles, and so there's really nothing not to like about it.
Yeah.
And so, what it comes down to me is, I think we've kind of found the sweet spot with our partner. I'll call it, for lack of any other way to define it, our partnership with the Blue Zones and the other community partners like True Care and others, where we're putting very minimal, right now, zero hard dollars. I'm sure there's some staff time in there and stuff, but that's a good, to me, that's a contribution that makes sense to promote a culture of healthy living in San Marcos. And if we can maintain that sweet spot and get more contributions from the other healthcare and related partners, and have them do a little bit more of that heavy lifting of communicate, like True Care, you know, they should have flyers in their lobbies, right? And they should email their email list and that kind of stuff to get that communication out there. I think we should lean on them a little bit more, and we can help with our social media and do it that way, because again, that's another way that we can contribute in a very low or no cost way. And I'll use that sweet spot again, that because I feel like why wouldn't we wanna do this? But at the same time, I don't know if we wanna spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this. And so that's where I think if we can go down this road with the other partners that are gonna fund it, then it's kind of a win for our community. And let's keep it. So to get back to your original question, do you wanna keep moving forward? At this point, yeah, I mean, why not? Because I think it's a really worthwhile cause, and it's not costing our taxpayers any money.
Do we have a button on our homepage? We might consider that, just to make it easier, and then it does, as always, it needs to be in English and Spanish. I guess my other thought is, I have no idea what this would look like, but is it possible, to Councilmember Nunez's, well, just not having seen the Blue Zone, Netflix series, is it possible to have that available to everyone, even if they don't have Netflix? I don't really know. Is there a way, is that a trademark thing? I don't know any of it.
Netflix
but-
might take exception to that.
Yeah.
It might be available through the
But Blue
library.
Zones is so very,
Okay,
very
so-
special, they may have an arrangement.
Yeah.
Maybe if we could research that a little bit, just to see how that might work.
They also have, lots of books about the Blue Zone, so if you, for whatever reason, don't want to watch the documentary, it's just not easy, you go to the library and check out their books, or I would think that our library would have it, but if not, we
check and
Yeah,
make
we
sure
should
they
make
do.
sure they have all
Yeah.
the books, there's a bunch of books.
Yeah.
But this was on my list as something that I'm passionate about pursuing in the following years. And I do just wanna make one thing clear, that even though Blue Zones conducts the assessment, once the assessment is all done, which takes some time, and then once they give us feedback, if we choose to implement the Blue Zone and become a full Blue Zone, I mean, that is work on our behalf, which I think is really exciting. And I would think that would fall a little bit into Parks and Rec, economic development, things like that, to kind of, bring everything together that Blue Zones sees us needing to work on. But I look at this as a way to bring the whole city together. I think there is nothing but upside for this. And yes, there will be some growing pains, I think, with this. And, we're already seeing that right now with the communication. People are a little bit confused about what it is. And it is a little bit complicated to understand everything that goes into it. And, I think some more education to the community at this point. We need to latch on to that so that people are excited about it as we're entering this phase.
Oh, and the school district is super excited
Oh,
too.
yes,
Yeah.
the superintendent
They're really,
is really
yeah,
excited.
really excited.
Yes.
So it does bring in
Yeah.
that youth, and, when I was talking to your nephew about it, he was very excited. And we've gotta get the kids on board, because the kids are going to help change the behavior of us as adults. We're used to our set ways, and, having that healthier way. I remember, when sometimes I would go home after council meetings when my kids were younger, and they go, "Mom, you had a long meeting, how are you feeling?" I'm like, I need to walk around. I feel like I've been sitting way too long. So, even just, the kids saying, "Oh, hey, did you know that if you walk so much time per day, that actually brings your stress level down?" I think, having the kids involved is a really important part of this, and I'm so excited that, San Marcos Unified is so into it as well. It's exciting.
I just wanna make sure, I'm not opposed to providing education to our residents. I do prefer that it be accurate and information that we provide and we present. I do also wanna say that I do understand that we were able to raise $150,000, right, by the city staff to be able to pay, the Blue Zones team for this
Actually,
assessment.
Councilmember, I actually did I did all of those calls.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
You'll
but-
find it on my contribution forms.
But I do have to say that, I think we all appreciate, at least I do, that we have very finite resources, whether we're talking about our general funds, but also with our, or stakeholders and a lot of the organizations that we collaborate with. I know for a fact that they don't have unlimited funds. I know they're very finite, and so I do think about what our ask means to the general community, and especially when we're talking about really individuals, residents that are really disinvested and have so many needs in our community that rely on true care, that rely on, neighborhood health, that rely, and so for me, it's also thinking through the ask that we're making of these organizations, and these are individuals, and how we're, in a sense, carrying out some of our mission, and how we collaborate in the broader community. So for me, that's something that I think a lot about, because we work so closely, I work so closely with some of these organizations, and I'm not aware of unlimited funds that exist.
I'd like to add a goal, unless we're sticking with just what's on the board.
No, this is your form.
I just wanna see Phil get up again.
Yes.
He's stretching with us.
Yeah.
You'll go home and you'll feel better. You won't be as blue. Over time, we've seen the city and the region impacted by fires. I lived that in a different life. And one of the things I was tasked with doing was setting up a master mutual aid plan for the law enforcement agencies, and then working very closely with the UDC, which I know the chief knows about, trying to fix every single time we go through one of these conflagration, what are we gonna do better next time? Ideas are thrown out and everybody leaves and nothing gets done. But we need to come up with a plan in our emergency operations manual for two things. Points of egress for the different regions within our city. So whether it's San Elijo, Santa Fe Hills, if it's the downtown area, wherever it happens to be, how are we going to get people out? And sometimes you have to go to what is called the contraflow, where you shut down egress to a particular point of road, and then everybody travels on both sides of the road to get them out. So that has to be balanced though with the opportunity for the chief and his team to come in. Because it's almost always going to be a fire. That's really what we deal with. And right now, we're switching from La Nina to El Nino, so we're gonna see weather patterns changing, different rain cycles. We're going to buy a little extra time. I think it's the perfect opportunity to sit down with the disciplines involved, and it'll be public works, it'll be law enforcement, it'll be fire probably taking point, because you need to get in where you need to be, and we need to get people out. And then how does that marry up with Escondido, Carlsbad, and Vista? Because maybe the issue is not ours, maybe it's theirs, and they need to start dumping people into our city. What plan do we have in place? And we all know plans are great until the first shot's fired, but at least we have a model, we know what to expect. How are we going to handle Carlsbad? Chief Station 6 is one of they're the primary responder for a portion of our city, is that correct? For Carlsbad?
Yeah,
Yeah. They are. Okay, so some of those decisions about who's coming are not really going to be made by us, but we still have to make that accommodation. So if we could start the process of looking at it, primarily our major arterials, Twin Oaks, San Marcos Boulevard, San Elijo Road, Rancho Santa Fe, Mission, and where would we expect people to leave, and where would we expect people to come in? And then along those routes, how do we make accommodations for first responders? And then once they leave, where would we want them to go? We can't rely on the county. The county takes a while to ramp up, and then their scope is going to be much larger than what we need. What are we gonna do here for our own people? I think it's a great opportunity right now to start that process. And it's all, we can hire a consultant, we can hire somebody to write the program, model it, apply for grants. I know the chief is already expecting me to start talking about that through Velocity. There may be some money for that, because if we characterize it as a fire response, then I think we have them in. But even if we don't, we can't sell the community short. I think it's extremely important to do this.
Yep. And we should probably do that at the, regional training. We had that, last year here in San Marcos. Seems to me we probably might have been talking about some of these things, but maybe not in great detail like that. So whatever it is, we probably, all the cities need to be doing that, at the same time, so that we all know, hey, if A happens, you're doing this, I'm doing this. I feel like that should be something that also goes to, like I said, the regional training.
One of the, it's good timing, because one of our county annexes, which is Annex Q, is being finalized, so it'll go to the fire chiefs probably within the next 90 days, and it's focused on evacuations. The contraflow is not, a huge piece of it, because contraflow it's defined differently and utilized differently, so if you don't put a label on it, then it opens up opportunities for law enforcement to do whatever they need to do to open up those roads.
It requires flexibility.
It is, that's what we're doing with the contraflow. But it does address those evacuation and, operations for law enforcement to shut down those usual, routes of traffic in order to get the flow of traffic in the opposite direction temporarily and provide for public safety. So that is gonna hit in the next 90 days. Our EOP, we've been working on our EOP probably for the last 2 years. There was a large pause because there was some federal requirements that we're assessing as a county, which trickles down to the local government, because we do want to have that regional approach, because in San Diego, we are heavily reliant on each other to make our operations effective. And so we're waiting for those federal regulations to come down, that we're not chasing down the changes, but that we're ahead of the curve, so excellent.
And Chief, does that require supervisor's approval? Does that go to the board or?
Not for the NXQ, it does not.
I like it. No government in, public safety issues. The best way to be.
Okay, so on the list, of staff potentially recommended goals, is there any, angst around focusing on road resurfacing or playgrounds, digitizing, policy code updates and improving our quality of the neighborhood services?
Those are all great ideas.
Okay.
Just ongoing forever.
Make it so.
Yeah.
All falling under the one thing, quality of life.
Yeah.
Can I, add something that I wanted to talk about with the traffic flow? So, I know that we have a lot in the pipeline in terms of infrastructure updates, but the residents don't know that. And I, you know, as we all do, it's one of the #1 complaints in the city. So, is there any way, and I'm not sure what this would look like, can we let people know, sort of like, you know, when somebody puts in a permit application, we put up the signs. Is there any way to let people know, okay, so in this area, we are working on this? Or, you know, when we implement the adaptive signaling, that new pilot program, can we put a sign up saying, you know, saying something about that? Basically, are there ways to let people know that something is coming, that things are in the pipeline? And I know I can't find anything on the website about it either. So I know we can put it on the website, but is there signage? Is there something we can do to let the residents know that we are working on it? Because I know you guys are working on it so hard. So I just want people to understand that this takes time and that it is very important to the council and it's very important to the city. How can we get that message out easily?
Yeah, let's maybe add that as a goal, that we can then huddle up and add to the work plan that we're doing.
And I thought we'd done some of that though, so I don't look at social media very often, only to respond if I feel like I see that I've been tagged on things. However, I just recently saw something on, social media about our, Discovery, playground equipment. And it said, funded by Measure Q. And that was, you know, something we had talked about doing, and so I think kind of to your point, when we do have a project that's coming, funded by Measure Q, maybe we put the signage up sooner than later of a, but, you know, being of course smart with taxpayer dollars, we don't wanna like buy 2 signs, but is it possible to have a sign that's, that, you know, could be like something that we could actually update? I don't even know, but something that says like, coming soon, you know, this segment of road is going to be
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then somehow, I don't know how we do it, but have the sign then change without having to get a brand new sign. That says, and now this is going to be completed by this. I feel like there'd be a lot of.
Like Caltrans does on the freeway.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But we don't want it to be 2 signs if possible.
No, just a sign.
Like if it's a way to like go back and, you know, have it as a small sign, but it's like a big sign in your part that's not used. And then we go back to, and as of blah, 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 this is now happening and it will be completed by this date, or it's estimated to be. Because I think that is very good, and, you know, back to our whole Measure Q, that the communication part was so much, or such an important element of that. Work.
Can I add, one of the things that I would like to add is for our ongoing goal is to make sure that we keep that visibility of Measure Q and to make sure that we have that bullseye that we keep coming back to. Because I know it's in part of our completed goals, but can we make sure that that's ongoing also?
Yeah, so
That-
can you put that on as a to be renewed goal?
Yeah, 'cause I think last year was just developing the symbol
go back to Measure Q in a way, in some way, shape or form. So, yeah, I think that's a great, comment, Councilmember, to have it all, how it connects to Measure Q. And, you know, I mean, Fire Station number 5, obviously, a huge part of that, but all of these other things, they wouldn't have been, you know, able to be.
Made possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, any other council discussions or goals before we?
I had one other thing,
Yes,
sorry.
absolutely.
I know we have the amazing economic development plan that we're working on, but I noticed that that's, you know, like you said, that's later in the fall. Is there anything that we can work on, and this, you know, isn't really for the next fiscal year, or it would spill into that, I suppose, but is there anything that we can do now, to help some of our small businesses? I've had about 3 reach out to me in the past 6 months, just saying we're struggling, do you have any ideas? Just getting people in the door. I don't know if, you know, maybe we could partner with the chamber or do like a restaurant month or a punch card where if you eat at 5, in the restaurants that are part of the chamber, like you can go get a discount at one of your, I don't know, some sort of incentive to get people to come to our local businesses. And also, just really get businesses in the empty storefronts that we have. And I know that once that whole assessment is completed and we have a great economic development plan, I'm super excited about that. But I worry about what could happen until that's implemented. I think we need some work on that. I think that's a huge thing that people, next to traffic, honestly, it's, why don't we have more restaurants? Why don't we have places to go with our kids, other than obviously amazing playgrounds and parks? We just need to get that here. We need to be aggressive, and we need to, you know, once we have those great businesses, we need people to go to them. So, you know, I would like to make sure we're focusing on that now and not just waiting to see what comes back to us in November.
I think a lot of what we see up there stimulates the interest to come here for businesses. It's a protracted timeline, and most businesses, when they are successful, fantastic, but a 2-year span is generally when you figure out if it's gonna work or not. But when I talk to people in the business community, these are the things they say, if you do this, it makes it easier for us to attract other businesses. I mean, we see that right now with the downtown area. Okay, you've got a built-in clientele, so now the businesses come in. When they come in, others come in, because they see the growth, they see the potential. And I appreciate what you're saying, it's fantastic. It's a tough world, especially with the restaurants.
Also, I just wanted to make a comment. Seriously, thank you so much to the staff. We threw so much at you last year. I mean, I don't even know how many goals, and. Nightmares about it. So, how impressive is it that we have completed most of those goals and made significant progress? So thank you guys so much for all of your hard work. It's just beyond impressive, and we see it, the community sees it. So I think we have some really incredible roots that we are starting to grow, and I think what we need to do is just make sure we don't lose momentum on those and just keep deepening those roots on all of these things that we talked about last year, and just make sure that we don't lose steam on it, and just keep up, you know, the San Marcos way and keep doing it.
Well, when you look around the room, we have an amazing staff and people that are so dedicated. And we, you know, for so many years, we were the little city that could. We somehow overcame so many obstacles. And I mean, I have people say to me, gosh, Mayor, when you took office 20 years ago, what has changed in the city? I'm like, well, a lot, actually. Helen was here though, but. Shout out Helen.
She has not changed at all.
But I mean, seriously, we have so much talent.
I had to sit
all
next
these-
to her tonight, Mayor.
But so much talent, and I mean, so many people that are so dedicated to the well-being of our community, I mean, okay, Dan was
Dan was
probably
here
here
too.
then. I know, but I mean, really, we've got so many people, and I tell people all the time, our staff is like, I have to pinch myself sometimes because we have people that really work hard and work together during really tough times, during, you know, downturn in the economy. And then also, gosh, a pandemic, and yet they stuck through it, came up with these innovative ideas, like, I just, this one just comes to my head all the time. People are like, oh, it's so hard, you know, I'm gonna be having a child and blah, 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 and I'm like, we have a baby on board in the city. I mean, even just that one little thing, I mean, really trying to work with our parents, trying to bring people together. And then, you know, having 60% of our city say, we believe in you and we want to invest in our community, it's a big deal. And we wouldn't have that if it wasn't really, honestly, for all of you guys. And so, thank you, just thank you.
We appreciate that. If you're in City Hall on the second floor, you might visit Yvette's baby on board, who is currently in residence.
Yay, I might have to go check that out.
It just changes the whole environment in the office. You walk
It
by and
does.
see a little swing with this little toe moving, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. She's so quiet. There's Yvette just working away and swings going, and I'm like, this is so fun.
Love that, I'm gonna have to go stalk around.
It's here in the morning. And, okay, would you like to vote individually on each of the goals, or would you like to take a vote for all of the goals at once? Anything you wanna pull out?
So it's that plus that, right?
It's the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'm good with all of them, so.
Do it on consent,
What?
the consent calendar.
Well, I think they just want direction, I'm good with all of them.
We'll come back.
Right, yeah.
Is there any goal that the council is not unanimously voting to move forward, or is it a 5-0, yes, please move forward with all of these goals?
All good.
Yes.
I just
Yes.
wanna, can I clarify with the blue zones? You're not asking for any direction past where we're at with the assessment.
No, on the blue zone, I'm asking for direction on, would you like us to put into the work plan that we're gonna bring back on March 18th, suggestions and, level of effort and cost to potential options for moving blue zones forward? So if the entire council votes to move all those goals forward, you are voting to potentially move blue zones forward to assess the level of effort and, budget or no budget at the next meeting,
Thinking about the
March 18th.
in the next fiscal year.
Yes.
That's, okay, got it.
Okay, so it's a yes vote for all 5 council members to move everything forward to the March 18th meeting. work
Yes.
plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
We'll mark that as a unanimous vote.
Great job, everyone.
Okay.
I know it's a lot of work that brought this forward, so great job. All right, this meeting's adjourned.